Hello, and welcome to the Rough Edges podcast with Sarah I. Fox. In this podcast, I will guide you through my faith and mental health journey to dispel the stigma surrounding mental illness and to create an empowering resource for those who wish to discover more about these topics. I pray that this podcast will not only bless you, but that it will bring growth and healing to our communities. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Rough Edges. Today, I am joined by special guest Lawrence Harris. Lawrence Harris is a youth empowerment speaker and author who helps teens and young adults build self-love, inner strength, and improve their mental health. Through his speeches, online content, and books, listeners find the courage to heal, dream bigger, and take ownership of their lives. His purpose is to help others to break free from limiting beliefs, heal from what tried to silence them, and step into confidence of who they are always meant to be. Welcome, Lawrence.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Yes, it's great to have you. And before we dive into our topic for today, I want to know what are three things that you can't live without and why?
Well, I would say the first one would be my laptop. Like this laptop has my email address on it, my business. If I don't have this laptop, I can't really do much. So that would be up on the list. Another one would be a good support system because life gets stressful. Like people get on your nerves. Running a business, you have stuff that suddenly pops up. You have things you have to handle. You have to make sure your bills are paid on time. There's a lot of things that get stressful. And if I didn't have people I could talk to and people who are there to support me, I don't think I'd be able to come on these podcasts and do what I do best. And number three, thing I can't live without, air. That would come to my mind. Like, has anyone ever said, like, is that a question you ask everyone?
Well, yeah, and
Has
mostly
anyone said air yet?
oh no, not air, but I've gotten food, so
Yeah, because when the question of what can I live without, I'm thinking like, okay, I could, if I lost my laptop, it would be really inconvenient, but I can get another one.
hmm.
If I lost my house, it will be even more inconvenient, but I could, live with somebody else. But if I lost air, I can't do anything about that one.
No, that's a very interesting way to look at the question because, when you think about it, what are things that we can't live without? A lot of people would say my cell phone and my music and maybe my family would make the list. But yeah, air is definitely it. Like you can't live without it. I know that you work with the youth population, like teens and young adults. So, what made you want to work with that specific population?
Because of many things. My own mental health journey being a teenager, I've realized that there's a lot of people who are suffering in silence and they don't get the help that they need because they don't know it's there or people shame them into not getting it. Thankfully, my mom got me into therapy when I was really young, so I was able to get help. But as I got older, I looked back on it and realized that if I didn't have help, my life would have turned out very different for worse. And then also, when you look at mental health statistics, about 33% of the people who are dealing with mental illness are teenagers and young adults under the age of 30. And the average time between symptoms rising up and people getting help is 11 years.
Mm.
So if someone is going through something when they're 15 years old, on average, it'll take until they're 26 to get help.
Wow. Those are some really, I would say, alarming statistics because the gap in which like you find out that you need help and in terms of getting the help, it's like that 11-year gap just described, that is something that is very scary, but also true because a lot of our households, especially I'm speaking from like my experience as a Black woman and in the Black community, mental health is never talked about, almost
Yeah.
rarely. And seeing a therapist is almost like, hey, don't go airing out our dirty laundry because we have a lot of family stuff that needs to stay within the family. And so there's that
Mm.
fear there.
You just brought up a real good point right there. So among the Black community, we do in fact have some of the highest like numbers because of, like you just said, that fact of one, you're raised to be told that, oh, we don't talk about our problem, like that stays within the family. If you keep your problems within your family and your family are the ones causing the problems,
Yeah.
you're not going to get help. You're telling your abuser that they're an abuser. That ties into my story with growing up. My dad was abusive to me and my younger siblings. And it took a lot of like work and inner healing and things to be able to talk about it. Part of us, is like that. You don't want to go tell our business, but there's a very big difference between you telling your business, your family's business on the internet, and telling a trusted person who's here to help you.
Right.
There's a very big difference between that. Then there's also the fact that because it's not talked about and it's not shared that, hey, help is available, when you look at the suicide statistics among Black men, those are sky high. And no one talks about this. We don't talk about our problems until it's too late to talk about our problems.
Right. No, that's absolutely it. And which is why our topic for today is about men's mental health, but not just men's mental health, like young people, especially, because I know that's an area that you
Yeah.
specialize in. But before we go into the men's mental health aspect, I want to know about your workshops, because I know you do workshops for young adults and teens, helping them find their limiting beliefs and trying to step into the lives that they're meant to step into. So, can you share more about your workshops and how they help the youth in their healing journeys?
Yeah. So typically, how these go is I'll go to a school or an organization and I ask everyone the same question: what is your dream life? However, you want to describe it. What's your dream life? How much money do you want to make? Where do you want to live? Do you see yourself ever getting married or having a relationship? Do you ever see yourself having kids? What's your dream life? Then I have them write it down and people share out, oh, I want to make $1 million a year. I want to live in Beverly Hills. I want to drive a Bugatti. Okay, that's great. But why not 2 million? And they're like, well, that's getting kind of greedy. So it's to say that we often box ourselves in and we think this is only the highest I can go
Mm,
because your limiting beliefs are limiting you. You think, oh, I can only make $1 million a year. And that's great. If you're making $1 million a year, congratulations to you. I'm not speaking down on it. I'm not even making 1 million a year. But the point I'm getting at is we have people who make $1 million a day, $1 million an hour. So what's stopping you from imagining that you can make 5 million a year? Because in the grand scheme of things, just numbers. Then I had them write that down. And like, okay, what's your dream life? But then go a little bit beyond that. Like push a little bit further. And then ask yourself, what kind of person would I need to become to achieve that? What things within me do I have to let go of? Maybe you procrastinate a lot. That was my problem. I procrastinated a whole lot. That's something that you got to change from yourself. Then you start taking steps towards it. And throughout that workshop, as we start crafting their dream life, because it's not what I want your dream life to be, it's what do you want, but go a little higher.
mm,
And as they're doing this exercise, they start noticing, oh, well, Lawrence, I can't make 5 million a year because no one in my family has even made 1 million. Okay, that's true, but that doesn't have to stop you. I can't because no one in my family has a degree. What's stopping you from getting one? Yourself.
Mhm.
I mean, unless there's like a financial issue there, but even too, what's stopping you from getting a full ride scholarship?
Mm.
Most of the thing that we say, oh, I can't because of this, that's not a fact. It's just what you believe. Well, if Neil Armstrong and all those people thought I can never do it because no one's done it, which was a fact, we would have never done it. And now people do it all the time.
Right.
Or phones. I can call somebody who lives in China and we can talk immediately. But if the person who invented the phone, like if Steve Jobs said, I can't invent the iPhone, now we wouldn't have iPhones, we wouldn't have MacBooks, we wouldn't have Apple TV, Apple Music, we wouldn't have none of that if he believed that he couldn't. But because he believes that he could, he did. And now look at how far it has come.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that because it is our limiting beliefs that do keep us from reaching the pinnacle of success that we have for ourselves. I like that example you gave in the beginning about, oh, I want to make 1 million a year. Like, why not two? Why not five? Like, even your
Yeah,
imagination, the sky's the limit, you know?
yeah. And it's a big thing there too, is how some people, what their dream life is, that I also do a lot of work in mental health organizations, but organizations that are aimed at people who are looking for mental health resources.
Mm.
And for a lot of them, one of the things that comes up is I just want to wake up and be happy. I just want to feel good. Okay, great. Now, what can we do to work on this? Like, what's stopping you? Oh, because of what happened to me in the past. This person said something to me. I grew up and I had this really bad experience. Okay. Now, is there anything actually stopping you from finding something to feel a little bit better about? Like, you woke up this morning, you have all 10 fingers. You know, you find these like little things that remind you that your life's actually a lot better than it could be. Because if you were blind, your life would be a lot harder. Or imagine not having fingers. Like if you lost all your fingers in a war zone or an accident, your
Mm.
life's a whole lot harder without them. So you
Yeah.
could say, well, my life might be bad right now, but it's a lot better than it could be.
Yeah, that's so true. And yeah, life without fingers would definitely suck. But it's the things that you don't really think about, you know? And it's a lot of the times we think, oh, okay, I have like 10 fingers, I have 10 toes, so what? It's like, dude, you could walk and you could hold things, you know? And it's, we take all these
Yeah,
things for granted. And there are a lot of things that we hold ourselves back from just because we think that there's a barrier. It's like, oh,
yeah,
I can't do this because I think it's something stopping me, when really our biggest enemies are our inner me's. Like, you
yeah.
know?
That's a great quote. Our biggest enemies are our inner me's.
So I do also want to ask about your experience seeking support for your mental health, because a lot of the times men don't seek help for their mental health or don't feel comfortable opening up. So what was that like for you in seeking your support for your mental health?
Well, the initial support I got was when I was 12 and my mom put me in therapy because up until the age of 15, I believe, your parents are legally the ones who can sign you in to get mental health resources. So if your parents decide they want to put you in therapy, unless you decide to not go, then you now have therapy. But as you get older, they no longer can do that because it's about the legal age of being able to consent to mental health resources. So, had I waited until I was 15 or 16, I would have had to seek it out myself. But thankfully, I was really young and my mom was able to just put me in there and say, Lawrence, you know that you need to go. And I knew that I needed to go. So I said, you know what? I'm going to somehow find the strength to tell this lady about all my problems and everything I'm dealing with, and hopefully she can do something.
Okay, and I'm assuming since your mom got you into therapy, was there any like pushback from you? I know you said that there was no choice at that point, but was there like a little pushback from you?
So initially there was like this kind of, I describe it as like this ego of thinking like, oh, I can figure it all out myself. I have it all figured out. I don't need other people to help and save me. But it's not about you trying to look for someone to save you. It's about you knowing that you don't know. Because if you knew how to improve your mental health, you would have already done it. And at the time, I originally, for the first 2 or 3 sessions, would be kind of very timid about what I would share with her.
Right.
Even though she already knew why I was there, I was just worried about, is she going to judge me? Is she going to think something about me? So I would only share the good things. But as time went on and I realized that, okay, this lady isn't going to start judging me, it's literally her job to help me solve this problem. I would share, like, hey, here's a little bit of the bad stuff. And she wouldn't judge me. I share a little bit more. She wouldn't judge me. And eventually, over the course of months and years, we got to the point where I could just share anything with her.
Oh, wow, that's important, especially in building trust with your therapist. Because I know a lot of the times when you go to therapy, it's very nerve-wracking because you don't know, like you said, if they're going to judge you, you don't know what the general atmosphere is going to be like. And so it can be hard to build that trust, but once you do build that trust, it can be very helpful for sure. And so I want to talk about more of the men's mental health side. So, what are your thoughts on the stigma surrounding men or young men expressing their emotions and seeking help for their mental health?
Well, the issue with like the stigma is you just look at social media, the news, TV, music, movies. They're just constant pushing of men need to be these like emotionless. Because it's one thing to say, okay, you can't just bust out crying in the middle of the street every single problem that happened in your life. Okay, you can't do that. But you don't have to box up all your emotions and just act like nothing's ever wrong in your entire life. Don't go crying to strangers in public, but also understand that you have emotions and they need to be addressed, because there's so much telling us that if you don't act a certain way, talk a certain way, look a certain way, you're not good enough. You
Hmm.
can go on Instagram and you can see reel after reel after reel of, oh, if you're not this tall, you don't make this much money, or you don't come from this place, or drive this car, or this or that, you're not good. We don't want you. But you matter regardless. And when men try to bottle up all of our emotions, it plays into why the suicide rate among men is 4 times higher than it is among women.
Hmm.
You have all these emotions just bottled up, all this anger, all this frustration, and sooner or later, you're going to take it out on someone or yourself. That leads to things like abusive relationships, alcoholics, suicide. So many issues happen when men don't deal with their emotions.
Right.
And a therapist, as stigmatized as it is in the Black community, especially, a therapist, they are professionally trained in how to help you help yourself.
Absolutely. And especially with what you said about the media and how society just perpetuates the stigma for masculinity. And it's often men being just stoic people, not really expressing themselves. And even when they do create safe spaces and have those types of things, it's almost as if, well, I don't want to say the wrong thing because I don't want to look as less of a man, you know?
Yeah, that's, you just brought up a great thing there too, because see, the notion of what masculinity truly is, a lot of the thing that we have been told are like, oh, that's either way too like feminine, or the term toxic masculinity. A lot of the things within that are being shamed because it's men actually being themselves. if you look at a lot of the things that are labeled under toxic masculinity, you'll see things like assertiveness, being bold, saying what you want, living how you want. Yes, those things can become toxic. Like if you're disrespecting people and hurting people, but in and of itself, it's just you being you. And with the notion of safe spaces, a lot of those, when men go in there, we're carrying in the baggage from what the world is needing us to be.
Right.
Because when we're in relationships, I don't have kids, but I can just speak from observing men who do. When the kids have a problem, they go to the dad. When the wife has a problem, she goes to the husband. When the bill needs to get paid, you go to the husband. When someone breaks into the house, you go to the husband. There's all these things that men have to do. But when it's time for the man to be like, hey, I'm dealing with these problems. My wife needs help with this. My kid need help with this. The bills are due. The car broke down. The house, somebody broke in. I gotta go handle that. There's not really that many people who can like support.
Mm.
And most of the time, I've been blessed enough to have relationships where this didn't happen. But if you look at most relationships, when the man opens up to his girlfriend or wife about, hey, I'm going through this challenge, life is difficult for me, I'm going through it too. Sooner or later, she starts to like feel less safe because now I can't, now he's not the rock that I need him to be.
Mm.
But everyone needs to have their time where they can like cool off and relax. And with the safe spaces, when men go in there, we're often bringing the fears and worries and pressure that the world needs us to be into these spaces. And it takes time for us to, like, just cool off and leave that outside and come inside and just say, hey, here's what I'm dealing with.
Yeah, that's actually a great point, especially with men having nobody to really go to unless they have these safe spaces, because again, it's all on their shoulders. They have to be the main breadwinners in the household. They have to protect the household. They have to provide for the household. And it's just like all these misnomers are placed on them. So when they walk into safe spaces, like you mentioned, they do have a lot of baggage and don't know where to start in terms of opening up. And so I wanted to ask, especially in your work with young men, what are some common patterns that you see among these men in terms of struggling to seek help for their mental health?
Refusing to acknowledge it is the biggest thing because picture this. You're raised your entire life being told how tough you need to be. Social media is telling you how tough you need to be. The movie, the music, all this stuff is saying that you have to be so tough. If you tell your girlfriend or your wife that you're sad, she's gonna leave you, she's gonna cheat on you, she's gonna divorce you. And this is being shoved down our throats. So the biggest thing that stops young men from getting help is this constant reminder of the world telling you that if you go seek help, like get a therapist or a counselor, that you're less of a man. And nobody wants to be less of a person. It's not just, oh, you're less of what the world wants you to be. No, the world is telling you you're less of a person. And that then leads into people trying to find all these ways to numb it, like to numb that pain of, oh, I'm going to drink my problem away. I'm going to smoke it away. I'm going to party it away. I'm going to date it away. But until you handle it, it's always going to be there. And with time, it only gets worse until you're willing to admit, hey, I need help. You don't need to necessarily yell it from the rooftop. No, you don't have to do that. You can just go get therapy. You can go talk to a pastor. You can go to a family member, like a trusted adult or someone. You can go to a school guidance counselor. That's their job. There's so many people who want to help you and are trying to, but until young men are willing to admit, hey, I need some help, they can't get it.
Mm. Yeah, that's definitely true. And like you said, they're inundated with all of these messages about being man enough, and they're less of a person if they don't have these societal criterias. And so I just wanted to know, did you ever feel at all like you're not man enough if you were
Oh,
struggling with mental health issues?
oh, that happened to me so many times. Because when I was a kid, I would often get like, I was one of those kids who was super nerdy, and I still am. When everybody else wanted to go play football or basketball or soccer, I wanted to go read a book. I wanted to go watch National Geographic or paint or dance or do all these things that were labeled as, oh, you're not manly, you're not enough, you're not one of us. We don't relate to you. So we're just gonna like ostracize you. And up until 11, because of that, I never had friends. So I spent the vast majority of my young life feeling like I wasn't man enough because I didn't play sports, feeling like I wasn't a person enough because people didn't want to be my friends, and feeling like I wasn't good enough because every time I would try to just show people, hey, here's what I'm into, the response was, we don't like that. That's not the norm for us. So we're going to treat you like you don't belong.
And how did you end up managing? I know therapy must have been part of it, but how did you end up managing those feelings? Like you said, you were ostracized for most of your young life. Like, how did you get to a point where you could start feeling like yourself again?
Well, there were three main things. Firstly, comes journaling. So through journaling, you're going to become aware of the issue. And your journal will never judge you. It's just a piece of paper. You can just write whatever you want. You can cry while you write. You can get mad while you write. You can throw it. You can tear it up and throw it in the trash, but it doesn't care. It's just there. Now you know the problem. Then the second thing is having the audacity to be, to do. What do I want to do? Do I want to wear a suit to school today? I'm going to do it because I used to do that all the time. That was actually part of my process of just who am I? And
Mm,
you just sit with that question. What makes me feel good? What makes me happy? Not what have I been told I should do or told I should be, but what do I want to do? Let me just try stuff. And then I got into making art. And I was like, okay, this is kind of nice. Then I got into different types of music. Like one of my favorite types of music is cartoon openings. Then I got into fishing because I just happened to try it one day and was like, I love this so much. Then naturally, as you start to be more of yourself and do what makes you happy, someone's going to judge you. Someone's going to have a bad opinion. I had so many people in high school judge me because I would bring a fishing rod and put it in my locker and I would go fishing after school. So many people judge me for it. People judge me because I would wear suits to school just because I felt like it. And what I would remind myself is the only opinion you die with is yours.
mm,
When you're in your casket, you're the only one in your casket. No one else is. You don't get buried with your wife. You don't get buried with your family. You don't get buried with nothing except you.
mm,
And when you're on your deathbed and you have to like look back on everything and go, did I really enjoy it? Like, if this was the one life I got, am I proud of this? Did
mm.
I live it? Did I live my life? Or did I live the life that everyone said I should live? And as you do this every day, not necessarily just asking yourself those questions and journaling, but as you decide consciously, I'm going to be me, you start to discover more of yourself.
Mm,
And you might realize that, wait, the way I want to wear my hair, or the clothes I like, or the music I like, or the food could be so different than my family. But that's because I'm just me and they're them. There's nothing wrong with how they want to live their life. There's nothing wrong with how I want to live my life. Their life is their life. They live their life. I live my life. And as long as we're not hurting anybody or committing crimes, just live your life.
Yes, I absolutely agree with that. And I love that you said you wore suits to school because, who were you going to show up as? You were going to show up dressed for success. And
Yeah,
I really also love what you said about the only person that's going in the casket is you.
yeah.
Like that is so true because when you think about it, we live our lives for other people so much, and it's almost as if it's like at the end of the day, this is my life. Did I do something that made me feel good, that made me happy, that went against like other people's expectations? And we don't often think about that.
And another part of it too is that you're not just the only one in your casket, but you're the only thing in your casket.
Yeah.
Because, a lot of people, they'll go and they'll pursue like these grand achievements. I'm going to make $100 million. Okay, great. Congratulations. Fantastic. I'm going to go get a mansion. Congratulations. I'm going to get 10 cars. I'm going to achieve all these great material things. Okay. But when you die, they don't put your bank account in your casket. They don't put your house in your casket. They don't put your car in your casket. They don't put your watches and your chains. They don't put your Instagram followers in your casket. They don't put any of that in there. It's you. That's it. You are buried in with your body and whatever clothes they put on you.
Mm,
You'll look good, but you'll be dead.
mm.
And it's just you in your casket.
Hello again. Before you dive into the rest of today's episode, I just wanted to say thank you so much for your support and for hitting that play button. If you want to expand on that support, here are 3 ways that you can do so. 1. Leave a review. If anything in today's episode resonated with you, or you would want to share about how the podcast changed your life, you can do so by leaving a review on Apple Podcast or Podchaser. 2. Check out our shop. The Rough Edges shop is a faith based, women of color owned online shop where you can get a variety of products from tote bags, journals, t shirts, and more. 20% of the proceeds go to a mental health organization. So check it out at roughedgespodcast.com/shop. 3. Connect on social media. Rough Edges is on a wide variety of social media platforms, including Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, and more. If you want to connect outside of listening to the podcast episodes, you can do so on these platforms. If you have any questions, you can check out the episode description or stay to the end for more information. Now, enjoy your episode.
In the process of loving yourself, you have to also love yourself for yourself. Not love yourself because, oh, I have 1 million followers. Okay, congrats. That's nice. But when you die, none of them care. They'll care for like a week and then they'll forget. Like, when's the last time you thought about the Queen of England?
Ooh, since her death announcement, yeah.
That was years ago. The lady ruled a country. She had so much money that she could not spend it all. She had a jewelry collection worth more than most countries have money.
Mm.
And after she died, people cared for like a month or two and then
Yeah.
they forgot. So when we die, unless you become like the president, nobody's really going to remember except your family. And nobody's going to know except your family. And when you're 95 or 80 or something, because I've spoken to multiple people as they were on their deathbed transitioning, and
Wow.
they've described like they know that, hey, this is it. Like they know this is my last day. I'm not waking up tomorrow. And they start pouring out, man, when I was 10 years old and I was 15, I did this and I did that, and I'm so regretful for it. And I'm like, slow down, you're 75. That was 60 years ago, but I just wish I could go back, and then they flatline. You
Mm.
don't want that to be the last thing that happened to you. You want to go out and know, yeah, I made some mistakes. I did some stuff I was proud of, but At least I love me. I can be proud of who I was, and I can go to the grave with a clear conscience.
Yeah. And I think loving ourselves is just such a huge part of all of that. And I thank you for enlightening us on that point. And I do want to share some statistics with you regarding men's mental health. It's from this site called Self Space, which is a mental health website. And it says 40% of men have never spoken to anyone about their mental health. 29% of those men say that they are too embarrassed to speak about it, while the other 20% say that there is a negative stigma. What are your thoughts on these statistics, and have any of them rang true for you?
Oh, a lot of them have been true for me. But what I want to say on those statistics is that I was willing to be bet that the numbers are actually a lot higher because the people in those surveys, I don't know how they conducted the survey, but these are people who were willing to answer these questions.
Mhm.
Most men aren't willing to answer those questions. So we're interviewing people willing to talk about not being willing to talk about something. So that's like one thing that popped up for me in hearing that because to think that, oh, 40% have never spoken to anyone about their mental health, I would probably say it would be in the number of 70
Mhm.
because other than me and a few of my male family members, I've never once heard any of them talk about their mental health. I've heard them say, I'm sad, I'm angry, I'm frustrated, but never, hey, I think I might need some mental health resources. Hey, I'm feeling really bad about myself. I've seen them become alcoholics, though. I've seen them drink or smoke their problems away, but they didn't talk about why. They just had the problem.
Right.
So I would say those statistics are actually a lot lower than was true. And in my own experience, I could say the shame and the embarrassment and, not wanting people to judge me, not wanting people to think that, oh, he's just soft, he's not man enough. That was very true. And another huge point that just came up there is that if we really looked at all the factors that go into why men don't speak up, it's really sad that they make sense. Like, if you have kids, you have to be these things the world says
Mm-hmm.
because now you have people who are genuinely depending upon you, and that adds a whole nother level of pressure. And then if you've been in a relationship, because I've known many men who went through this exact thing where we'll be in a relationship, everything's going great, but then we start talking about our mental health. We start talking about the issues we're dealing with, our stress, our problems. I'm feeling really sad today. And their girlfriend then proceeds to cheat on them. And when asked why, it comes down to like, oh, well, she didn't feel safe anymore. She felt like, and I don't mean like he was saying, oh, he's going to hurt somebody. No, just that he felt really bad about himself. That now all of a sudden she cheats on him and that now leads the man to think that, oh, if I talk about my problems, I'm going to get left because he now has evidence that proves that point. And
Right.
this happens so often that a lot of men talk about it online. And it's one of those things where we have to be willing to open up and get the help, but we have to do it knowing that somebody's going to judge.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to feel bad about us talking about our problems. When you go to the grave, you're the one going to the grave. Everyone else, they just were here. Maybe some of them, like your parents, you might have a fantastic relationship with them from the moment you're born to the moment that they're gone. But everyone else, they come and go.
Mhm.
And you have to be willing to speak up for yourself and understand that if you don't address the problem not getting handled.
Yeah, most definitely. And it is a good point that you mentioned in terms of like men being scared to open up. Like all the reasons do make sense because again, they have all these pressures on their shoulders and they have no outlet to release those things into.
I mean, some of the outlets that like we could just look at him. Most men, we're not conscious that we're doing this, but if you just look at our lives, we do it a lot.
Hmm.
People like going to the gym, that's an outlet. Maybe it's sports, or it might be video games, or it could be hanging out with your friends. It could be church. It could even be work. Some men working is their way to like let their problems out.
Hmm.
They don't consciously sit there and think like, oh, I'm going to use working as a way of managing my mental health. But we do it a lot. And
Hmm.
I'm someone who does that. You know, I make YouTube videos and go on these podcasts talking about my mental health as an outlet for it. Like as an outlet for me to get better. I talk about it so that other people realize that there's no shame in talking about it.
There is no shame. And I just wanted to also ask, like, if you could change one or two stigmas about how society views men's mental health, what would you change and why?
Hmm. First one would be that just because a man has mental health challenges does not mean he's a threat to society.
Mm.
That might seem a bit nuanced, but it's because when it comes to things like PTSD, in certain states, if you have a history of PTSD, you're not allowed to own a firearm because they think like the state level, they categorize everyone with blanket statements. You
Hmm.
might have PTSD from like a war, or you might have it where you like just grew up in an abusive household. But you haven't hurt a single person, you haven't hurt anybody. But they'll treat you the same way they would the person who's like a mass killer.
Mm.
Another stigma I would change is that just because a man talks about his mental health doesn't make him less of a man. I would actually say it makes him more of one. Because to go out there knowing that people are going to judge you, to go out there and know that the world is going to have its opinion of you, to go out there and say, I am having this issue, I need some resources, let's talk about this, let's find a way of dealing with it. It's actually a very manly thing to do.
Hmm.
It's you acknowledging your problem, talking about your problem, and finding a solution for it. That's a very masculine thing to do. Less of a man thing to do is bottling it all up, hurting other people, hurting yourself, and allowing the problem to destroy you rather than you controlling the problem.
Right.
And that's two of the biggest things. But a third one that just popped into my head right now is that just because a man has struggled with something in the past, don't look at him any different because I've met people who have been former heroin addicts. And honestly, out of curiosity, I would ask them, well, what led you to do it? What led you down that path? And they had a really good reason. They went through some terrible stuff when they were children. They saw people lose their life in front of them. They were just looking for a way to feel better. And eventually they got sober. They're now living much better lives than they used to. But you can't hold a man's past against him because if you don't know why, you can't judge him.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And I think it's very helpful for us to start normalizing safe spaces for men to be able to share their mental health experience. Because, like you said, the gym, sports, work, that could all be an outlet. But I think like having men be together in a group and just sharing and just really noticing that, hey, I'm not the only one that's dealing with all of this, that could be a good safe space for them because we see a lot of groups for women. They're like widower groups, they're like, book club and baking club. There are so many
Yeah.
things.
Men, we're like, we, on average, we don't just typically talk about our feelings the same way that women typically do. We're more of the type of like, we have safe spaces, but we don't call them safe spaces.
Right.
And like we will unknowingly be giving each other therapy.
Uh-huh.
Like, man, I'm going through some issues at home with my wife, and somehow we just talk it out without knowing we're talking it out.
Yeah.
So in a way, it's kind of like to make these sort of safe spaces, we have to figure out how to advertise that to men in a way where they're like, I'm not about to go to a safe space. Like, I'm not going to a safe space. But what we will go to is wing night. We'll go to that. And
Yeah.
at wing night, you kind of just like slide a mental health pamphlet in there. It's like kind of sprinkle it in there and
Yeah.
get the conversation flowing. And over time, it gets into things like, man, I overcame this problem. I used to deal with that, man. I was having trouble putting the alcohol down. I was having trouble with this. And before you know it, you just let people open up without cramming a bunch of people in a room like how Alcoholics Anonymous does. They
Yeah.
make you all sit there and say, I'm an alcoholic.
Yeah.
Whereas the kind of book clubs and things that I've noticed women typically go to, y'all just be in there having the time of your life talking about whatever. And men, we don't typically relate in that same way because a big part of the shame comes from other men where it's like that toughen up mentality. Because a lot of times, if you aren't tough enough in the world will walk all over you. It's very cutthroat, but it doesn't have to be that way. So it's a very nuanced problem, but the best thing we can do is simply let people know it's okay to talk about it with people you trust. You don't have to go tell everybody your business,
Right.
and your therapist won't tell everyone your business. They're legally unable to. They have to, if your therapist even tells someone your name, they get their license removed and they're fined $10,000 for every single piece of information. So if you tell your therapist about what you're going through at home or with your wife, and your therapist ever says, oh, Lawrence told me this. Lawrence is my client. Lawrence is going through this problem. That's $30,000 that they have to pay. And they lose their license and they can never be a therapist again. So your therapist has it in their best interest, financially and career wise, to not tell anybody your business.
Unless you're talking about harming yourself,
Oh,
the mandated reporting thing. But I get what you're
yeah.
saying in terms of confidentiality, because yes, your therapist is obligated to keep it confidential unless it's the things that I mentioned about harm and everything. But Lawrence, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. And before we go, I have one final question for you. What advice or words of encouragement do you have for men who struggle to manage or seek help for their mental health?
Hmm. Well, word of encouragement would be that it can get better. As cliche as that sounds, a lot of the things that are cliche are said so often because they're so good and so true. If you just ask somebody, and I don't mean just like asking a stranger, you might have a friend, you might have a family member, you might have a pastor, you might have somebody. And if you don't have somebody, thanks to the power of the internet, there are online, meeting that you can go to. Like there's an organization called NAMI, NAMI. They have online Zoom meetings to help people with their mental health. There are crisis hotlines if that's what you need. There are like professional therapists who make videos on YouTube. So if you don't even want to talk to people, but you just want the resources, there's that. There's a way if you give yourself the option to. Now, far as reminding ourselves too that every day we can get better, because the world is going to try to hold you down, it's going to try to tear you down. But if every day you remind yourself that I can get through this and you find people who support you, it could be as simple as a couple friends, a brother, a sister, an aunt, an uncle. Just find somebody. And you don't have to deal with it all alone. That's it. That's the main thing I want people to understand. You don't have to deal with it all alone because certain problems you don't have the answer to. But somebody else does. And there's no shame in asking someone who has solved that problem, hey, how do I solve it?
Yes, absolutely. Well, Lawrence, it was a pleasure having you on the podcast. And if people wanted to know more about you, where could they find you?
So my website, mainly for podcasts and speaking engagements, you can find that at lawrencecharris.com. My email address, if you want to just contact me directly about podcast or speaking at an organization, lawrence@lawrenceharris.com. And my social medias, so Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok, all of them are Lawrence C. Empowers.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Lawrence, and everyone. Stay tuned for more empowering episodes on Rough Edges. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Rough Edges podcast with Sarah I. Fox. If you want more updates on the podcast, you can follow on Instagram at rough.edges.podcast, or you can visit the official podcast website at roughedgespodcast.com. Thanks again for listening and have a wonderful day.